America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is a 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ali Breland, writer at Mother Jones Magazine, on the Peter Thiel-Linked startup, which is courting New York Scenesters. I did not get my invite. Also on the program today, Harry First, law professor at New York University, to talk more about this massive antitrust case that is happily bogging down Google right now. Also on the program today, Republican meltdown continues, driving us to a government shutdown. And leaked closed-door testimony show that Republicans heard evidence undermining their Hunter Biden whistleblower.
That's so odd that was behind closed doors.
It's weird they're not presenting it more. Meanwhile, Merrick Garland testifies on Capitol Hill. Fed maintains rates. Ford avoids a strike at its Canadian plant with a late-night deal with its union. Meanwhile, just 2 days off from the UAW's deadline to roll out more strikes. Democrats win 2 special elections, holding the Pennsylvania House majority, and flipping a Republican seat in New Hampshire, effectively tying the partisan split up there. We'll have more on that in a minute. Anti-affirmative action conservatives sue West Point over its admissions policy. You'll recall that the Supreme Court said that affirmative action is only okay in military academies. White House launches American Climate Corps, scaled down from Build Back Better from 300,000 to 20,000 people who will be trained to work on climate issues. Armenian separatists agree to a ceasefire with Azerbaijan. Tim Ballard, that anti-trafficking activist, was booted from Operation Underground Railroad for sexual misconduct.
What?
And then apparently, like, one of the producers of that film also was caught on video.
Sound of Fury, right?
Yeah.
It's a couple bad
sexually assaulting a migrant.
They protest
all this
too much.
And more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. We got a lot to get to. Just briefly, we'll probably talk a little bit more about this later, but we had highlighted yesterday that Pennsylvania election. It turned out in Allegheny County. It was I can't remember which district it was now off the top of my head, but it was a Democratic held seat. The Democrat won big there and really breezed to an election. It was a special election because the sitting Democrat had resigned to run, I think, for county supervisor. It maintains it's the 21st House district in Pennsylvania. Thanks. It maintains the one-person Democratic lead in the Pennsylvania House. Republicans still control the Senate, I think, by a half a dozen or so votes. But it maintains the control in one house, and so Shapiro has at least one house in Pennsylvania. In New Hampshire, Democrat Hal Rafter defeated Republican James Guzski or something.
It doesn't matter now.
Yes, he's no longer there. This is a Republican +6 partisan district. Trump won by, I think, only half a point. The Democrat won by 12 percentage points. Now, there was only something like 3,000 votes in this district. I mean, so there's only so much you can take from this. But in totality, if you look at all these special elections, Democrats have been really crushing it. I don't really know what else to say.
Overperforming.
And completely overperforming. I mean, aside from the fact that Rafter's win means that the New Hampshire State House is tied at like 198 to 198. And if I remember correctly, there are 2 vacancies and then there are 2 independents. And I don't know for sure where those independents caucus. But nevertheless, that's a big upset. He won by 12 points. That's an 18-point partisan swing.
I mean, this is why Democrats on the national level are not as worried about Biden's poll numbers now as maybe like the rest of us are when we look at them, right? Because they feel like they're in a situation where the negative partisanship about Republicans is so strong that they can ride it through. At the very least, right? I mean, that seems to be their thinking.
That's exactly it.
And what's and as much as like we can say from the outside that there are concerns about Biden based on those things, like where is the empirical evidence to show that they're wrong right now?
No, there isn't. And I saw that I think the Biden campaign had put out a tweet to the effect of Donald Trump, just highlighting what Donald Trump had said in a recent interview, that I'm responsible for the Dobbs decision. And Biden was like, yes, you are. And that is the problem. And that is, I think, driving a lot of this. In the meantime, the Republicans are in a complete disarray in the House. They rejected or I should say, Speaker McCarthy pulled a vote on a procedural vote that would have allowed for them to vote on the defense budget. And they couldn't even get the procedural vote off the ground. Here is Fox and Friends, Kilmeade, Ducey, and Ainsley Earhart interviewing Representative Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana. Johnson is sort of somewhere between, I think it's accurate to say, the Freedom Caucus and the leadership, or sort of like part of the leadership, but the sort of Freedom Caucus representative. And these guys are so bat crap crazy that they don't even realize how bad they look to even ostensibly normal Republicans. Of course, you know, this is still far to the right of just normal human beings. So here they are talking. It's rare you see Kilmeade get this hot under the collar about the Republican Party.
Can't just focus on this. You focus on trying to get a continuing resolution to finally get a budget going. For some reason, you guys didn't get your appropriations bills done. So now they want a continuing resolution. A lot of conservatives got together, like Scott Perry, Chip Roy, and the Speaker, and they came up with what they thought was a CR, but it failed because of people like Matt Rosendale. Listen to why.
I've said for months now that I will not support any continuing resolution. That is merely an extension of Nancy Pelosi's spending and Joe Biden's policies that we voted against. Republicans voted against for the last 2 years. We were assured by Kevin McCarthy, this Congress is going to be different. Congress needs to do their job. They need to pass the 12 appropriation bills. They need to get the non-defense discretionary spending reduced to $1.471 trillion.
I pause it for 1 second. I just want to remind everyone that Nancy Pelosi is no longer in the leadership of the Democratic House. She's not Speaker of the House. She's not even minority leader.
But the continuing resolution would continue, like her. I mean, the stench of Pelosi, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the continuing
It's not
resolution
that wrong, but-
would shape a budget that was from the year prior, but they had ample opportunity to work on it.
Exactly.
They haven't.
Biggs, Dan Bishop, Ken Buck, and Matt Rosendale voted no. So you guys failed, and now moderates are getting together with Democrats, and they might do something and leave you guys out.
Well, you just named some of my best friends, Brian. I'm a conservative as well, but I'm also in House leadership, okay? I recognize the reality of the math, and Matt Rosendale, he's not wrong. He's correct. We do need to do our approach bills, but doing a CR will allow us the necessary time to do that so that we can have good, thoughtful, good stewardship for the taxpayers.
But he knows that, doesn't he? So what's the point of blowing up your continuing resolution? It's you and Chip Roy who we blew up. What's the point?
Yeah, well, we're having some intense fellowship behind the curtain, okay? But we have a slim margin, all right? This is the reality of governing with a small
for
majority.
1 second. What does that mean? We're having some fellowship behind the curtain.
Oh, so much intense fellowship happening in the Republican caucus. It's a little.
It's religious
Well,
language.
no, it's a religious language. I'm
Stewardship,
asking if anybody knows.
No one knows what that means. Yeah. They're all best friends.
I know that
Mr. McCarthy is yelling.
No, I mean I know that we have, we have some evangelical Christians in this audience. Maybe they can tell us what that is referring to.
And what's intense stewardship and intense fellowship? What does that mean? Who are the stewards and who are the fellows in this caucus? And what is behind said intensity? Because I don't know. It just seems like they can't get their crap together is really what this all boils down to.
Intensely. Let's go.
But we're going to get there. We're not going to shut the government down. I'm convinced we're not. I think cooler heads will prevail, and we'll get, ultimately, the 12 appropriations bills that we need. We have great leverage for the ultimate negotiation time with the White House and the Senate, but we got to have ourselves in the best place to do that.
Isn't it embarrassing, though? Aren't you embarrassed? Isn't your party embarrassed by the way they're acting?
Well, look, politics can be ugly sometimes, okay? But what you're seeing is regular order. That was the big reforms that we got. You don't see, let's pass the bill now and read it later. You see the messy part of the sausage making, okay? And that's part of it. But we're optimistic. I think we'll get the team together and do what we have to do. We're going to get the job done.
Congressman, part of the team wants to get rid of the quarterback. They want to get rid of the speaker, and this is their way of doing it.
Well, it may be. Look, I think I'm optimistic that everybody's operating in good faith here. The negotiations went into the late into the night last night. You have Freedom Caucus, you have Main Street guys, the moderates, everybody in a room trying to work this out. And I think everybody had.
Oh my God!
He's
First
so
of all,
mad.
Ducey's laughing at this. Kilmeade is steaming.
He's crossing his legs together so tightly because if he lets any limb move, he's going to have some sort of fit of anger. Yeah.
When was the last time Kilmeade referred to the Republican Party as your party?
Ooh. Yeah.
Is there any more to this?
Hello, darkness, my old friends.
It's everybody in a room trying to work this out, and I think everybody has the same objective. We want to cut this runaway spending that the Democrats have done. They've added $10 trillion to federal spending over just 2 years in power. That is not a trajectory that we can continue. We have a $33 trillion federal debt. That's what is motivating all of us to do our job. So you'll see the arm twisting, but we'll get it done.
All right, y'all have to get together and pull those 218 votes and then reconcile with the Senate. We'll keep watching. All right, we wish you all the best this morning.
Yeah, everybody's getting very Southern and very y'all and fellowshipy here.
Yeah. Intense fellowship when we're making the sausages.
The other thing that's also fascinating is that, meanwhile, this guy is saying this is, the Democrats' debt and this and that, and they're trying to blame it. But the biggest mouthpiece, or the second biggest mouthpiece in the country, I guess, who's getting the most publicity, although it's diminishing on a daily basis. Ron DeSantis is out there blaming Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump for trillions of dollars worth of debt. And so he keeps saying, I'm sure we're going to do this. I'm sure we're going to do this. And Rick Scott saying, I'm sure we're going to do this. I'm sure we're going to do this. It's unclear to me what, let's say, Matt Gaetz's incentive is to make a deal here.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to run for governor in Florida in 2 years. And so I would imagine he'll do that, within a year. He'll make that announcement. And he's going to do that, and he wants the biggest platform possible. And this is the way he gets it. And all it takes is 4 of them to not vote for this. And the moment Kevin McCarthy needs 1 Democratic vote to pass this stuff, then it's all hell breaks loose. All right, we got to take a break in a moment. We'll be talking to Ali Breland, writer at Mother Jones, about this weird libertarian scenester, New York scenester scene.
Yeah.
That is, it's fascinating, but I can't make heads nor tails of it. So happy to have her here to talk about it. First, a word from our sponsors. This is a sponsor that I was using their product before they became a sponsor. And people hear me talk about apples a lot. Where do I get my apple trees? I don't get them at, a big box store because they don't have the range of apples that I want. Let's say there's nothing funny about that. I want a pristine apple, an Arkansas black apple. I want one that has specific attributes in terms of like when in the season it provides the apples. Maybe it's resistant to cedar rust.
Normal.
That's a normal thing.
You're mad at Matt for laughing? No,
FastGrowingTrees.com. And first of all, people don't realize this. Fall is a great time to plant because your tree roots and your plant roots, really your tree roots, they have less shock when you put them in the ground in the fall. They get to establish themselves, then they go dormant, and then when spring hits, it's off to the races. And at FastGrowingTrees.com, they got experts. They curate tens of thousands of plants and trees and shrubs, and it's tailored to your specific needs in terms of like climate and location. You don't have to drive around a big, box stores or nurseries and shove a tree in your back of your car and have a break. You go online, you order, they're delivered to you in 1 to 2 days. And it doesn't matter whether you're looking for like privacy trees or shade trees or just ones for beauty, like that lilac bloomerang that I have. 2 of those, they bloom in the spring and later into the summer. The beauty of Fast Growing Trees is they ship you really big trees, and they know how to ship this stuff. Plus, they have a 30-day thrive and alive and thrive guarantee. They ship this stuff really well. They package it very well, and that way everything that you get will be healthy for years to come. And they also have all sorts of like help 24/7. They give you advice on how to plant it, maybe what trees or shrubs would be best. They have everything there. Honestly, this stuff is great from a tall grass to fruit trees. I got a bunch of Korean pear trees, and often a lot of these trees, they'll be bearing fruit within the next season. That's how big they are. I don't know if they grow faster, but they are bigger, and so they take hold quicker. Listeners to our show get 15% off your entire order when you go to fastgrowingtrees.com/majority, but only through October 15th. That's 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/majority, fastgrowingtrees.com/majority. Also, Emma's seen it. People have made comments. I'm dressing better. I think it's pretty obvious. And a big part of that is Roan. They have what they call the commuter collection, and it is shirts and pants that are built like, not like athletic wear, but like, I don't know how to describe it. Kind of.
But looks
they
like
look
dress shirts.
like dress shirts, and they look like dress pants, and they wear that way. But they are far more durable. They have stretchiness. They move with you. The fit is amazing. They do not need to be ironed.
Yeah. So if you're traveling, and stuffing it in the suitcase, you don't have to worry.
Exactly. I'm not the best when it comes to folding things. And it really, for any occasion, the commuter collection works. They have pants, dress shirts. They got 1/4 zips and polos. Emma remembers that one day I came into office. I was wearing the shirt. She's like, "Is that a Roan shirt?" I'm like, "Yes, it is." But then I had to put on a suit to go to a funeral, sadly, and then I went to a nice dinner.
Right.
That was actually probably one of the most social days I've had in years. But nevertheless, throughout the entire thing, and the shirts don't smell. They're treated with this thing called Gold Fusion. Again, Roan is 100% machine washable. You can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. It really, great stuff. The commuter collection get you through any work day and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/majority report. One word. Use promo code majority report. That's one word. Save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to roan.com/majority report. That's RHONE.com/majority report. Use the code majority report. It is time to find your corner office comfort. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ali Breland, writer at Mother Jones, to tell us about a Peter Thiel-Linked startup, which is courting New York Scenesters and plotting, of course, a Libertarian Paradise. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Ali Breland. He is a writer at Mother Jones magazine, writing last week on a Peter Thiel-Linked. Everything is Peter Thiel-Linked.
Yes.
It is a startup that is planning to create a Libertarian Paradise called the Praxis Society. First off, welcome to the program, Ali. Praxis has been a word that I've associated with the left. Was that a conscious decision for them to sort of like adopt this nomenclature as a way of like, is this like a post-left type of, who are these people?
Well, they're also obsessed with the Roman Empire, right? So it's part of like that mythology is my guess, but go ahead.
Kind of. Thanks for having me first off, but yeah, I don't know the specific genesis. Actually, it like kind of never came up directly. Like my guess is it's like some amalgamation of it being like a trendy word in this sort of like weird post-left sphere, where people like Red Scare that were in this world were like using the term a lot to the point where it became a meme a couple years ago. It also like it has like a sort of history beyond that. It's like I've come across like Praxis Capital, I think, or like which is like a separate group, but like it has adoption beyond, I guess, just like the left in ways that I didn't realize. People hear the term like in practice and they think that sounds cool, I guess. I don't know.
All right. So tell us what this is and how you came upon it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So like Praxis is a city building startup, has pretty clear ties to Peter Thiel. It's funded by like sort of people in his universe, not him directly. And then it is funded by a couple of venture capital firms that were founded with like a lot of his money. The way I came across it was that it was just like sort of this ambient thing floating in the ether in regard to the sort of like quote unquote New York downtown art and cultural scene. There'd been like a small piece in New York Mag about a writer who had like infiltrated one of their parties and gone in and kind of seen what it was and dug a little bit into the Thiel connection without fleshing it out too much. And so then from there, I was really curious to understand like why people like Thiel and these other sort of very rich VC types that were investing in Praxis were interested in it, as it was like sort of throwing these parties in very like sort of niche but important, arguably cultural spaces in downtown New York.
When a venture fund that is funded by Peter Thiel does something this way, like, isn't that the way that Peter Thiel would fund things? I mean, for the most part, I'm sure he does some directly, but it's like, I give money to, I don't know, a dozen venture funds. And when there's something that I'm interested in having funded, my assistant or my assistant's assistant sends a note to the head of that fund and says, take a look at this. And they go and they give that money there because they know that's basically part of what their agenda is.
Yeah, potentially. Like, I didn't find sort of hard evidence to suggest that's the case. I can't rule it out, though. He does have Founders Fund, so like that's his actual VC that he invested in, which was not tied to this. And he also didn't like put his own money directly under his name, but like he does kind of like to be mysterious. So it is like fully possible. Like in my reporting, I couldn't like figure it out wholly, but another example that comes up in the piece is that like his personal spokesperson was also acting as Dryden's spokesperson, sort of in this weird quasi-temporary way, which is kind of goofy. The spokesperson told me it was just like via personal connection, but kind of an interesting coincidence.
So wait, so what does it do? Like, I mean, like if there's venture capital being put into this, like, what is it that they think they're going to get? What is what are they investing in?
They're trying to build a city on the Mediterranean. Yeah, like they've like expressed an interest in the Adriatic. They're trying to build a city. They've like they've had conversations. I don't know if they've contracted with them directly or not, with like Zaha Hadid's modernist architecture firm, the late Zaha Hadid, and they want to build these like modernist buildings, possibly in Montenegro, possibly in Italy. They've talked about a few different locations. And I guess the way that they would make money that they've kind of talked about in the future is like, if it becomes a valuable city and a valuable location for like capital transfer, then that real estate is going to be valuable. They'll have some of it. And I guess they can make a lot of money that way. They floated like having an internal cryptocurrency too.
Yeah, it's like based on crypto, right? Which didn't they try this already in Mexico? And I can never say the city's name. And Acapulco, right? Right? Is that not the name? That's the name of the city. Like that was also some sort of kind of anarchist crypto outpost where a lot of different people were going, and not anarchists in but they called themselves that. But they were essentially libertarians, right? And they were trying to make a city there based on cryptocurrency, and it failed spectacularly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with that specific example, but like these sort of iterations like don't exactly necessarily hold the most promise at this point. They're often ill-planned. The link between Praxis and crypto is kind of weird because they did call themselves a crypto city and they sort of affiliate with people who are very interested in crypto, but like my understanding was that their internal cryptocurrency kind of like fizzled out and they never really built it in the way that they wanted to. And like they never clearly articulated like what the crypto sort of angle was going to be. They sort of like said things about like doing things like on the blockchain, but like it was never fully fleshed out. And I can't tell if it was just like a signaling thing or not. But yeah.
So how much money went into this organization, and in terms of founding this city that they're going to build, did they get any further than parties in downtown Manhattan?
They had $20 million of funding, $5 million in the seed round, about 14-ish in Series A. My understanding is no. I kind of heard things that we ended up like not like fully fleshing out or being able to report in the story, but like for all intents and purposes, no, they didn't get any further than that. They like had discussions, I think, with supposedly like the Morocco State Phosphorus Company about potentially buying land. So there was like they were talking to people, but nothing was built.
Wait,
yeah,
$20 million is a lot of money. In fact, like the biggest like story in left-wing YouTube was an investment of $20 million. And they seem to have only thrown parties. Like, is there something else? And I I don't want you to go beyond what your reporting has been, but is there something else going on here? Like, how do you get from we're going to invest $20 million, they're going to have parties, there'll be some cool people who show up, and then we're going to have a city? How does that, how does that work?
So the cool people thing has like kind of two parts to it. Like the most surface level bit of it, which like I think was the case and was told to me by like employees internally, was that there was an interest in cultivating this kind of community to build like a sort of a group of people that would be attractive to other people, to get like rich and powerful people to eventually come or like invest or support in the city in some way. So like it would be like a sort of like remote version of like how Williamsburg became extremely sought after and is like 10 years ago was like sort of like this quasi artist district. And now like everyone I've come across that lives there is like a software developer at like Amazon or something like that. And so I guess like the idea was to do that with Praxis and find these like cool people, get them to go to Praxis, get them to be interested in it. And then you get like a bunch of other people that way.
But Praxis is not, I mean, I understand what you're saying about Williamsburg, and in Dumbo is actually a great example of like, this is an area that was, 30, 40 years ago when I first came to New York was, you didn't go there. I mean, even, even 20 years ago, it was basically squatters in apartment buildings with, like warehouses without much electricity or heat or something like that. But Praxis is not a place. It's just like they just get like party spaces and then get together and hang out. What did they do with the $20 million?
The $20 million, like, I mean, that's not enough to build the city. I heard things about
$20 million is not enough to build a city.
Yes.
Let's make that clear. But it is enough to have a couple of parties. It's like, I understand $20 million and I understand parties and I understand cities. I just don't understand how they're connected. That's the part that just seems really mystifying to me.
I think the other thing about the parties too is like, this is speculation, but like my understanding or like my guess is that like these people put this money into this company, understanding it was like highly speculative and probably like understood it was like almost certainly going to fail, just like they do any other venture investment. But what I think may have been the case too is that like Silicon Valley has this like problem where like its ideology is kind of shifting. Maybe it's just like a mask off moment. They've always had this, but there is this like sort of rightward turn. They're really frustrated. They don't like this sort of like elites in the media. They're very like angry about like how their perception is and how like their culture doesn't quite have purchase. And like I suspect that they maybe saw this as a potential way to get around that, like by sort of finding people who are culturally interesting and had some purchase in a world just beyond like Silicon Valley. They might have saw an opportunity to like buy their way into, I guess, like their politics being a little bit more successful. Like
It's like the Sacklers or whoever, buying a bunch of, donating a bunch of money, or they're trying to curry favor with a group of the cools, I guess. Yeah. And because fascism and like some of, in your article, that guy who founded this, Dryden Brown, who you mentioned earlier, like he just seems, based on the books that he has allegedly recommended and read and his ideology, just a fascist. He's just a fascist, and that's not necessary. That's my words, not yours. But it's just based on what he's reading. Like that seems like it's not going to be something that's easily laundered, and so you've got to buy your way in.
Yeah, he was sort of also not like extremely scrupulous, but like to some degree pretty careful about revealing this. Like my understanding is like the group of Praxis members who are not employees kind of, most of them didn't have an understanding of like what he was actually interested in, and only people who are kind of there on a day-to-day basis really kind of like noticed what was going on. But yeah, I mean, it just ended up being extremely goofy. Like 20 million went to parties and taking the team to Europe multiple times.
I mean, that just seems like I still can't get over the number. Like if this story was like, these libertarians got together. They spent $1.5 million on basically an ad campaign to make libertarianism hip and cool. All right, that seems like a lot of money. But $20 million, that seems like an extraordinary amount. Do they like distribute that money in any way? Or is it just literally they've just been able to expend it on parties and trips to Europe?
My understanding is it's mostly just been like parties and trips to Europe. I mean, I assume they're paying like different vendors and things. So like some of the money went to the director of American History X. Do some filming. Where else did that money go? I think they paid Nico Ballesteros, Kanye's personal videographer, to do an unreleased video. I mean, ultimately, like relative to the 20 million, these were like relatively small expenses. Nico is around, it was like a 5-figure sum. But yeah, the money just went to like a lot of things like that. I mean, maybe they still have more money and they're sitting on it. My understanding is that they're raising more money in Series. They're trying to raise more money in Series B right now to get the actual money that you would need to build a city.
Based upon the success they've had so far.
Yeah. We'll see who's like interested in tying their name to this kind of thing.
Are they still having ongoing parties?
So their CEO actually started tweeting after spending over a year trying to ingratiate himself deeply into New York. He's tweeting about how New York is over, how he's moving back to San Francisco, and he's going to be spending more time in the EU. So like maybe they're going to have San Francisco parties with all the very cool people there.
Sam wants an invite.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I missed it. Well, that sucks. Well, it's a crazy story. Ali Breland, if there's any more of that shows up, please let us know, because I want to know what happens to this. And if anything like this happens, even, crops up again with a different group, I want in. Yeah. So I want to go to the parties. I'm fascinated by this. Thanks so much for coming on and talking about it. We'll put a link to your piece in Mother Jones at majority.fm.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, I can't get over that story. I just like $20 million
it just shows how this means nothing to them. Money means nothing. And then there's just like eager ideologues that will take it.
But they do nothing. Like it is just parties, because like all these people, their political impact, like they bubble up. It's like support Blake Masters or something. Like it's and they're so detached from anything but like there's that one guy who was writing like the blogger, you know who I'm talking about, who was writing about this scene.
Oh yes, the kind of the Red Scare women are involved in that art scene.
They don't. Dime Square.
Dime Square. Right.
And it's like they don't do anything though.
Which is just like another like kind of libertarian-esque effort to take over an artsy kind of.
It's like Williamsburg parties, but
liberal scene, but it's not.
Yeah, they read the Dark Enlightenment guys.
Yes,
like, okay, I mean that's.
And they like trad wives or whatever that thing is.
Next up, we'll be talking to Harry First, a law professor from New York University, on this Google case and what to expect more in terms of antitrust in the coming months and weeks. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Harry First, law professor at New York University. Harry, welcome to the show. Professor, you there?
I don't know how we lost the audio.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick break. We got to deal with this. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland.
All right.
Want to welcome to the show Harry First, a law professor at New York University, about the ongoing antitrust action by the U.S. government against Google. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So just characterize for us this antitrust suit against Google that we're seeing play out as we speak.
Well, this is the first major antitrust suit against a really dominant firm in more than 2 decades, the last one being against Microsoft. And it's about Google's efforts to maintain its position as the monopolist in general search on many different devices, but primarily on mobile devices and on the laptops or notebooks. So it's going through how Google has kept its position, not necessarily through competition on the merits, but by fencing out its competitors.
And in many respects, it is very much analogous to that Microsoft case, in addition to the fact that a lot of the players that were involved on sort of different sides, they've sort of switched sides in some instances, but they're involved once again.
Yes, well, when you want expertise, you call on people who've been involved before. So that's what the parties have done. But the government, the Justice Department, and the states who are suing sort of set this case up as a Microsoft-like case, in part because I think they feel the law in the D.C. Circuit, where this case is being brought, is favorable to them. The court basically decided the monopoly case in Microsoft favorably to the government plaintiffs. So they want to put it in that context. It involves a similar effort to fence out competitors, a little bit different kinds of conduct, but some similar, paying those distributors to distribute your product exclusively and not to distribute someone a different one.
Now, in at least a couple of cases, and this specifically has to do with essentially Google being the default search engine on in these browsers essentially, and paying for that sort of pole position and using their market power and their size as a way, like you say, of fencing them out. My understanding is that we're being told, and by we I mean the American public, right? The DOJ is bringing this on behalf of the American public, that it is a trade secret as to how much money Google is paying these enterprises. How is that possible? How can a dollar figure? I mean, I can understand if like we have a special sauce that's associated with this, and my grandmother came up with the recipe, and I don't want to tell anybody. But how can an actual dollar figure be a trade secret?
Well, Apple and Google have tried very hard to keep this number secret. There was some prior litigation, a different case, in which the figure came out, I think, for one or two of the past years, indicating that the sums were quite staggeringly high. Now, why does it qualify as a trade secret is a great question. So I'm not going to presume to be an intellectual property lawyer. I think in the end, these numbers will be revealed. But at this point, the judge is being cautious about what gets into the public press, really sort of until the end. Now, this is a familiar pattern that we see in major litigation, where parties want to keep things out of public view about the exact details of their business if they don't have to.
Characterize this case. I mean, this case was brought by the Trump DOJ, and it initially, anyways, characterize this in the context of what we're seeing in terms of like the evolving understanding of antitrust law in the country.
Well, I think you make a good point to say that the case was brought by the Trump administration, because I think it shows that there is, and I think there still is, some bipartisan concern about the size and power of the big tech platforms. And this is a case, one, not the only case, it's one of several that's trying to test the question whether antitrust law is capable of reining in that power and controlling it. And we have yet to see how that's going to work out in the end. But I think it does show that there is some broader political consensus, and you do see it even to some extent in Congress, about a concern with, major power, economic power, which then can translate into political power in the United States.
But I'm looking for you to maybe characterize this in the context of, we have been operating under an interpretation of antitrust law that changed radically, in my opinion, as far as I can tell, during the Reagan years, out of the, under the auspices of Robert Bork and ideas that were coming out of the University of Chicago at that time. And there has been in the past decade or less, in making its way, I think, into the Biden administration, a reversion to the perspective of antitrust law that existed prior to the early 80s, in terms of what constitutes an illegal or an antitrust violation. It seems that this case is still a function of sort of the untouched parts of the ideas of antitrust that existed during that era. But there are more cases sort of in the chamber or on deck, if you will, that are going to be representing a reversion to an earlier concept of antitrust.
Well, you are correct that the case is framed in a way that doesn't want to blow up the way antitrust, or completely blow up the way antitrust is developed. So you're referencing the, what's called the consumer welfare paradigm, which narrowly put says, we're only concerned with price and output. We want lower prices and more and more and more. And that's it. Now, that was always a narrow view of what antitrust was. Even those who want consumer welfare didn't all subscribe to that. So this is not outside the paradigm of consumer welfare, in the sense that in the end, the government plaintiffs are going to say this harms consumers. But if you say price and output is the only thing that counts, of course, you're looking at search, which is unpriced because it's free. And Google doesn't want you to do less search. They want to give you more search. So in some sense, this goes beyond that to look at issues of innovation and other aspects of the bargain that consumers get. But there's also the advertising side, which has been mentioned in the government's case, and the effect on advertising rates. So the government still wants to keep touch with price. Not a bad idea. We don't want to pay more for things, but it's just not the only idea. And I think that's where Biden antitrust certainly is going. Now, in terms of blowing up the way we're looking at it, the area in which you would want to look is in merger policy, and that's still evolving in what the Biden administration is doing in terms of what you call a reversion, but a touchback maybe to the way merger law was viewed, which did go beyond straight looking at price and output effects.
And my understanding is that mergers and acquisitions are down significantly over the past couple of years. I'm reading at least reports that Google's feeling constrained, not even necessarily by the actions that are being brought against them by the DOJ or the FTC, but by the prospect of this. Can you talk about how enforcement creates an environment where there's almost some measure of self-regulation, or at least less or more trepidation about pushing the bounds of antitrust?
Well, you can put this current Google litigation and the effort in mergers together and think about deterrence. Yes, the government cannot bring suit against every case that it might want to. Who has time, who has money to do that? So it has to try to deter firms from engaging in anti-competitive behavior. And this effort, the first in more than 2 decades to go after a monopolist, is part of that effort to deter monopolists. The merger policy is also part of that effort. Now, I'm a little more pessimistic about how well firms are deterred. I think firms are still making lots of acquisitions, frankly. And when you look at the figures, the federal government doesn't look at more than about 2% of the mergers that it sees each year, year in, year out. So you got a pretty good chance of getting one by. I'm not sure if you really want it. You're not going to take the chance and fight it. And big firms are doing that as we speak today. So the jury's a little out on whether deterrence policy is working, but it's certainly part of the effort, and it should be part of the effort. That's what all prosecutors do. They want to deter wrongdoers from engaging in wrongdoing.
And what do you, just more broadly speaking, where do you see the biggest problem that we have within the context of antitrust?
Well, I think the problems we're going to see fairly quickly. It is not clear to me that the Sherman Act is up to really stopping these major big tech platforms from maintaining their monopoly position. The law is fairly conservative on this, and there's a long way to go between the current trial and appeals to the courts of appeals and perhaps to the Supreme Court. So the law is fairly conservative. The same is true in merger law. The judges are pretty skeptical of some of the government approaches, and we're seeing that play out now. So we have yet to see exactly how limited that's going to be, and the answer may be we need some changes in the law. We don't have to, wonder whether Congress is up to that, except to say there's some bipartisan support for some changes in antitrust law to strengthen it, but whether that would change antitrust law is yet to be seen. So we're in progress. I think people who want stronger antitrust law or enforcement are making progress, but we haven't reached the end of that road yet, either way. So we'll see.
This might be outside of your portfolio, but can you give me an assessment of the federal judiciary when it comes to antitrust? I mean, we've had a Republican administration that placed a couple hundred federal judges on the bench in 4 years. frankly, we did not have, as far as I could tell, the Democratic administration prior to that was not particularly sensitive to antitrust. And certainly, I think the Bush administration and the Clinton administration were also not champions of a broader perspective on antitrust that may have existed, let's say, in the 50s and the 60s, or certainly, in the first half of the 20th century. Where do the judges sit on this?
I like the metaphor. They sit on it. I would be a little cautious in ascribing everything to who appointed the judges. The judge in the case that the Federal Trade Commission is bringing against Facebook is an Obama appointee, and skeptical. I think trial judges tend to be skeptical of high-flown theories that when the government can't bring evidence into court, and I think this is nothing new. This goes back to when there was more litigation in the 60s. So judges are generally conservative. The question is more, what are the appeals courts going to do? And the results have been mixed. The judges aren't always negative on antitrust, and there are a number of judges that seem to very much favor antitrust enforcement. But the question that's really going to be is what's going to happen when these cases, or if these cases, get to the Supreme Court, which, as we've seen, has tended to become maybe more political. The lower court judges are more bound by past precedent, and past precedent is conservative. So I'm not sure it matters that much who's appointed them, so much as the general conservatism of the law and of judges generally.
Has there been a change in the sort of the institution of law schools that has reflected where we're seeing, at least within the context of our politics, in terms of like the interpretation of antitrust? I mean, specifically with that the consumer welfare paradigm. Where have law schools been on this?
That's it. Antitrust beginning sort of after that Reagan revolution and this narrower view, which we can roughly call consumer welfare paradigm, took over. Antitrust became sort of less interest in academia. And so I think that there was, less ferment for changing things. And to the extent that, education and, antitrust courses and so forth became, I think, maybe less attractive, less relevant to students and so forth. I think that's picked up now. It's reversed based on actually what's happened, the writing of a lot of academics, but a lot of economists, in fact, pointing to the bad effects of the policies, which there was always a significant academic dissent to. But I think now it's gathered some political steam. So what's the impact of the law schools? I'd love to think the law schools have a lot of impact.
Well, presumably all the judges who are sitting on the bench, all the judges who are sitting on the bench went to law school.
Well, all the judges that sat on the bench during the Warren Court went to law school too. They did, but that still doesn't, it's not a factory quite that produces monolithic views. And law schools, if run the best, are not intended to produce monolithic views. They're intended to produce students who think for themselves. Now, I can't, unfortunately or fortunately, control what those thoughts are, but I think most of my colleagues, that's the purpose, not to indoctrinate them, but to get them to think and be skeptical. So I don't know. You would separate out the difference between the scholarship, perhaps, and the teaching.
Fair enough. Harry First, law professor at New York University and co-director of the Competition Innovation Information Law Program. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program, wherein we'll have fun.
Fun.
So much fun. The number is 646-257-3920. Just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you also get the fun half. And you get extra features on the app. For instance, like you can IM us via the app if you're a member.
Ads taken out artisanally by me every single day.
That's right. Handcrafted. The show is handcrafted by Matt every day. Also, speaking of handcrafted, justcoffee.coop is, well, I mean, people put the coffee beans into the roasters. And I've seen it in Madison, Wisconsin. I've visited justcoffee.coop. It is a co-op, thus the .coop on the end of it. And Just Coffee has all sorts of different great coffee, tea, and chocolate, fair trade. They really take care of their suppliers. They have great politics. They're movement partners. They were out there giving free coffee to people when folks in Madison were marching against Scott Walker. All you old timers will remember that. And you get 10% off if you use the coupon code majority. You can also get the Majority Report blend. We have our own blend of coffee. You were doing that way before just about anybody. Break Room Live, Marin and I. And then, of course, he had his WTF blend. It's a little bitter.
You know which one to buy.
That's on purpose, though, right?
Yeah. Emma.
Yes.
What's happening on ESPN?
ESPN, that wasn't yesterday, that was Monday. We did a full breakdown of NFL Week 2. We also dove into the scandal surrounding the NHL coach Mike Babcock, youtube.com/ESPN show. Also want to say, next Saturday, on the 30th, I will be in Baltimore at VidCon. And I'm going to be on a panel with Vosh, who I now know how to say instead of Vaush, which my brain could not for some reason compute that it was Vosh, with Brianna Wu, with Destiny as well. So it'll be an interesting, I really don't know. The only thing I know about Destiny is that his fans don't like me, so I'm kind of ignorant about streamer stuff. But
he's been upset with us for some things.
Oh, okay. Well, it'll all get hashed out or not at VidCon, but like if you decide to come, I will take photos. I'll chat with you afterwards. I've had COVID, so I'm not that worried about it. So if you want to, you can go to my Twitter. There's a link to get tickets, and you can come for the day. I'll be there on September 30th.
Destiny and I had a debate about whether Kyle Rittenhouse was in the right, I guess, for shooting those people, and I should say killing them. And Destiny felt that if Kyle was of a different race, that I would be sexually servicing that person
I remember
in
now.
a very dramatic fashion.
Yeah, you got to get people to pay attention to your stream somehow.
He thought that I had a problem with Kyle Rittenhouse shooting people dead.
So you're anti-white.
Because he was white.
You're anti-white.
Classic.
Everyone knows that about
classic
you.
Cedar turn. It's
a Cedar X over here.
Yeah. So that's enjoy.
So I'll be talking to him
with
about that exclusively.
Have fun. Have fun with that.
Yeah, I don't know how it's gonna go. I mean, I just got asked to do it, and
also you like Baltimore, so
I do love Baltimore.
Just try
honestly.
and keep your white hate in check, and you'll be okay.
I will put on the mask just to get through it.
Yeah. Matt, What's happening on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, last night on Left Reckoning, we had Matt McManus on to talk about conservatism. Really a book that's kind of a continuation of Corey Robbins' The Reactionary Mind, and maybe a little bit more philosophical and literary, getting into Nietzsche, Aristotle, Tolstoy, and the sort of the through line in the political right of being against equality. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. In the postgame, we went into a little bit of the funding revelations in independent media lately and how that's playing out. So we're probably not going to clip
Is that the Ballard? Allard.
Yeah, we talked about that. We're probably not going to clip it for monetization purposes. So if you want to hear David and I talk about that, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Yeah, we should say. I was listening to what's her the Courage News? Is it Rise? I can't remember her first name, but she apparently worked with
Jen Dees,
Dees, not.
Oh, I like.
Yeah, Rise. Not like she's.
I thought her name. I thought it was R-I-Z. As opposed to
D-I-Z.
And the story there was that she was part of a news outlet called Rage Against the Machine, I think it was. Was that what it was? And
something ending in machine. I don't think it's Rage Against the Machine because that's the band.
Right. But
Truth Against the Machine.
And it was with Jordan Chariton, and they had gotten, via Jimmy Dore, according to her, $100,000 pledge from that billionaire. And just on Jimmy Dore said, direct that money there.
That's some good.
And I think only $50,000 ultimately made it. But that's amazing that this billionaire would only give Jimmy Dore $5,000, but on Jimmy Dore's word, the billionaire would pledge $100,000 to somebody else. That is what is known as a good friend, folks.
That is when you get.
That's
super independent media.
That is super independent media.
Yeah, that's what independence is measured in like the amount of money that you can get from your friends.
Well, but my point
that's
is
how independent I am.
That
and not
it's
dependent
one
on that money.
thing for a billionaire to come and give me $5,000, but I'm going to be like, whoa. Give $100,000 to that person because you've already given me $5,000.
God, I wish my memory was better because I remember those conversations a little bit between those two guys, but I don't really remember the specifics of it. But yeah, that was Jimmy was like looking, I think, for an out from TYT at that point, right? Because he was trying to do his own thing, and it helps when you have some billionaire
friends. I mean, don't call them.
No, I think this is afterwards. I think supposedly.
Well, the machine thing, and I'm still blanking on that name, but that was Jordan was working on that wall.
Right, but I don't think the money came in until 2017. It's my understanding.
Yeah, well, who can say?
I'm still thinking that's around that time frame.
Well, I guess that is actually now that you say it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just friends. It's just I have friends who they support independent media. I don't know why you can't have friends that support independent media now. This is why the left doesn't win.
You know what's nice is like basically all my friends. I have a few friends in this field, but basically all my friends are not in this field. And that makes me feel like, I don't know.
I have no friends in the field of billionaires either.
Well, but I just mean even in like this independent space, like, I mean, I rely on like my personal relationships being outside.
I'll say, you can't become my friend by giving Left Reckoning money. I will appreciate you as a member of an audience and a community, but like, let's just say like you're not going to become friends. Even $500,000.
El Conniption says, I think the outfit's name you're looking for is Status Quo. This is the one that preceded Status Quo.
Yes.
And Tommy from San Jose says it wasn't $5,000. It was $5,000 a month for multiple years. That is what my understanding is, that someone who was close to Jimmy assumed it was.
That's what Graham thought.
Yeah.
What's $5,000?
I don't know that guy would be necessarily privy to exactly how much that Jimmy would have gotten.
Yeah, it's above your pay grade.
Suspect exactly.
It's around
for you. It's $5,000.
It's around $5,000.
It's $5,000 a month.
Yeah,
because I don't want you to get the impression I should be paying you anything. So
we're just friends.
Yeah. Anyways, we're gonna take a quick break. Headed to the fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number. See you there. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.